Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow, okay. We ready to go then?
You're ready.
Okay, lucky people. This is making costume armor from fiberglass. And first thing I want to emphasize is that this is costume armor. It's not designed to stop bullets or anything like that. You know, maybe a Nerf dart is about it. But you will learn some skills in this to be able to make, you know, Mandalorian type stuff, or most of the Stormtrooper stuff is vac form plastic, but all kinds of different shapes. That's the beauty of fiberglass, is the shapes that you can make. You don't need to take any notes because I have a URL at the very end where I will have this posted later this week. And this is the outline of what we'll be covering. I'm going to give a quick demonstration so that the resin has time to cure. Then we're going to talk about safety, the supplies you're going to need, how we lay up fiberglass, the tooling, and then the layup process itself. And then we're going to finish up with how you finish out the edges to get there and be able to get your armor ready for painting. Okay, so this is the demo part. And what I did is I started out. So what I've got here, half piece of PVC pipe. Okay, I'll talk about this later. Ideally, I do the demo at the end, but I want to have time for the resin to cure. So you're going to get a little bit of information now. Maybe it'll be repeated. The PVC is covered with cellophane packing tape. Okay, the resin will not bond to the cellophane packing tape. It'll stick, but it will also separate if you give it a little nudge. So what I've started with here is fiberglass resin down on the surface, one layer of fiberglass cloth, okay? Let that cure. Come back the following morning. This is a piece of craft foam. What is it, PVA? EVA foam, right. You're going to be my buddy here. Pass that around, okay? That's just like you get at the craft store, or the flooring, the pads for the floor that you can get at hardware stores. Okay. And that is bonded down with 2-part epoxy. Okay, that's to give your part a little bit of thickness and keep it light and cheap. Okay, so this is my Bondo fiberglass resin. This is a mixing cup, and this might smell. Sorry about the smell. You want to do this typically outside where you have good ventilation. Okay. Stir stick. This is the catalyst for this particular kind of resin. I'm going to put about 24 drops in there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. And notice I'm wearing safety glasses, and I've got nitrile gloves on. Okay, then we're going to have to mix this up for about a minute. Anybody hear any good jokes this weekend?
There's one about a turtle.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. What's that?
Just at 3 meters in a snow.
That was 2 panels ago.
We were there.
So they recommend you mix this up for about a minute to get the catalyst all even with the resin. You can see that the resin right now has about the consistency of maple syrup. Okay, adding the catalyst is going to start a chemical reaction in there. Two things are going to happen. The resin is going to get hot, and then the resin is going to harden. Now, fiberglass by itself is limp, has no rigidity. The resin has high rigidity once it's cured, but it has no toughness. If you dropped a piece of solid resin, it would most likely crack or shatter. So by combining the two materials, we get the best characteristics of each material. And you may have heard the term a composite. Composite materials. This is like the most common application.
So just to summarize what you got going on, you have the PVC pipe with vacuum tape,
Yep, cellophane packing tape,
and then you have the fiberglass cloth.
fiberglass cloth and resin on top of that.
Resin top of that. Okay.
Let that cure. Come back after it's cured and put your foam on.
Okay.
And then once that's cured, now we've mixed new resin. I've painted it on down here. And I'm going to take another ply of fiberglass and lay it across. Okay. And I'm going to add some more resin to that. And when the glass is saturated with resin, it more or less goes clear. So I don't know if you can see from where you guys are sitting. If you want to come up closer, that's fine too. You can see as the resin is soaking into that fiberglass, you can see the pink underneath. And there's no magic to the color. It's just what I had. I did want to use something that wasn't white so that you could see how you get the color through there.
It's just a silicone brush.
Yeah, and this is a silicone brush. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. Post-Christmas, it was like, yeah, in their home section there. And the beauty of that is, after the resin hardens, I can peel it off and I can use the brush again.
Awesome.
So get more than one use out of the brush. And I'm having to work fast because this is already I can already tell it's starting to kick.
It sounds like basting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get an even saturation of the cloth, not too thick, not too thin, because ideally you don't want to see the fibers of the glass through the resin when you're done, because you're going to sand this and put some filler on it and whatnot, and then you'll be able to paint it. Okay. And notice that I'm kind of working from the center and always working away. You want to keep the glass cloth smooth and not wrinkled. That's easy to do on this kind of a part because there's only one contour. If you have double contour, it gets tougher, and also the bigger the part gets, the tougher that gets. Okay.
All right. How much time do we have to be working at that before the cap?
About 9 minutes. A lot of it too depends on temperature. In the summertime, I'll be working in the garage and it'll be 95 degrees, it goes a little bit faster because it's, again, it's all kind of, the catalyst makes it hot, and the heat is a byproduct of the curing of the resin. Okay, so you can all see, okay, and there's a lot of excess around the edges. That's okay. It's all going to get cut off later. All right, so that's the demo part. Now, probably wondering, why did we go through all of that?
Question.
Oh, yes.
So late, so you have put a sheet of fiberglass on the bottom, then to,
Then the craft foam. So let me back up. Okay, that's okay. PVC pipe, okay. Cellophane packing tape on top of the PVC pipe. The cellophane packing tape acts as a release agent for the resin, okay. Then I laid up, ahead of time, I laid up 1 ply of fiberglass cloth saturated in resin, let that cure, come back with the craft foam, and bond the craft foam to that with 2-part epoxy. All right? And then come back, and you're all caught up now.
yes.
Okay.
I walked in when you started.
Okay.
Molly.
All right.
I have this,
Oh, you have,
is there any concern about direction of the cloth?
we'll get to that. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Did I do that before? Okay, that's the outline. Okay. And we're back to the bulk of the quick demonstration. Okay, who am I and why should you pay attention to me? My name is Phil Grubenhoff. I have a BS degree in engineering and 36 years experience designing and repairing airplane parts. Back around 2006, I wanted a Darth Vader costume. And so I bought one. Da, 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 da. Darth Cheapo, yeah. Pretty sad Halloween costume. Then I saw the 501st in the 2007 Tournament of Roses parade, and that's when I decided to join. When I saw the quality of the 501st costumes, I knew I was going to have to do a much better job if I wanted to get in. So I bought a better helmet, and I made some parts out of wood and plastic, and I got a little bit better, but still not good enough. Wood and plastic just didn't give me the flexibility that I needed for these parts. A coworker was excited about building an ultralight out of wood and fiberglass, and I started picking his brain and reading about fiberglass on the internet, and I finally took the serious plunge. I made shin armor for my Vader. Now, this was pretty complicated. There's lots of contours and divots and bumps, and I would not recommend it as a first attempt for anybody. But I got it done, and it turned out pretty good. So then I decided to redo my chest armor in fiberglass. And I eventually got to here, and this is the costume that I wear today. I got into the 501st, and Star Wars costuming is a bit of an addiction, and I went off the deep end. My son wanted a Mandalorian costume, and I got a lot of experience building that. My younger son wanted a General Grievous costume, and we compromised on a pre-cyborg General Grievous. All the Mando armor that he's wearing, he and I made, and my son's Grievous mask and sword are also made out of fiberglass. Oh, you don't see my son, my other son. There he is. Okay. And this is his sword. All right. You get an idea. It's light, it's durable. Gosh, it's about 10 years old now, so it's held up over time.
It's gold inside?
It's foam and fiberglass, yeah.
Oh, does that pretty lax support previous or?
Yes, yeah, they did a comic book run and an action figure of Grievous before he became a robot, okay? The next thing I did was a Clone Trooper costume. Now, the costume itself was vac form plastic, but I needed to make a gun for him, and so I can't do anything simple, so I made a Z6 rotary blaster. And a lot of the Z6 is made out of fiberglass to keep it lightweight.
Good.
Now, did you guys walk through our 501st area at all? Okay. Oops. Wait a minute. So you saw the Death Star, okay? Death Star has fiberglass skins, and Han Solo's body and feet are also made out of fiberglass. And then finally, General Grievous contains a lot of fiberglass parts too. Why fiberglass? With fiberglass, you can make relatively strong, lightweight parts that will look good and last a long time for a reasonable cost. The other advantage to fiberglass is the contours you can make with it. Think about boat hulls and sports car bodies. Many of these products, consumer products, are made with fiberglass. Okay. But enough about me. Those slides were just to let you know that I know a few things. Now we're going to talk about the important stuff. Okay? Safety. Wear safety glasses while you are doing any of the steps we're talking about, okay? These are safety glasses. You can see they've got sides and stuff. Okay? The chemicals and dust that are inherent in working with fiberglass can irritate your eyes and in very extreme cases cause blindness. Latex or nitrile gloves. I had those on while I was doing my demo. Curing resin gives off a lot of heat. You can get chemical burns from it, so that's why you wear some gloves. I'm not doing this very well. There's my gloves, okay. Then you're gonna wear a breathing mask with filters, not just a dust mask, but a painter's mask with air filtration. Can you guys smell the resin? Okay.
I don't like it.
Resin gives off some strong vapors. This room is big enough, we're not in any kind of danger, but you don't want to be doing this like in a closet. And make sure you got good ventilation while you're working. Okay, so the minor risk is worth it because you can make some really incredible things with fiberglass. Like I mentioned, fiberglass is a composite material, which means we're going to be combining materials to make some really neat shapes that are strong and lightweight. No, that's too soon. Sorry. One of my goals is always to keep my project cost down. This is my hobby. This is not my business. So as I go along through here, I'm going to be mentioning prices and where you can get some of this stuff. I don't work for any of these companies. There's, of course, other places where you can get this stuff, but I'm just giving you a starting point. So the first thing you're going to need, if you're going to work on this, is fiberglass cloth. This is the most common stuff. It's Bondo brand. I get it at Walmart for about $8. I'm sorry, it's about $6 for 8 square feet. You can also get it at hardware and car part stores, but it tends to be a little bit more expensive there. Fiberglass cloth is described by its ratio of weight to area. So this is 6 ounce per square yard, unidirectional weave. All right? Unidirectional weave will work for most applications, and 6 ounces is a good middle weight. You can go lighter, you can go heavier. This is the most common stuff. Bidirectional weave is not as common. It's a little bit more expensive. Let's see, there we go. It's a little bit more expensive, but it follows contours better because the weave is like a herringbone. So, all right. Everybody has a plastic skull in their garage, right?
You skip that.
Okay.
Why?
This is, you know, I didn't have a, have you ever tried to gift wrap a basketball?
Nothing like.
No? Okay. When you have a piece of fabric, paper is a kind of fabric, okay, and you're trying to get it to lay down around something that's curved, it wants to, you push it down on one side, it comes up on another side, okay? That's, I always get this mixed up. This is unidirectional weave, okay? This is the common stuff. The bidirectional weave, a little bit more expensive, but it's kind of neat because it will, as you're laying it down, it kind of stretches in two directions. So I can go like pretty much all the way around that skull
Yeah.
without getting a pucker in it, okay? And you guys want to see this stuff? It's kind of messy. No? Oh. All right, it's up here afterwards if you want to see the differences. Alas, poor Yorick. Wait over there. Okay. Okay. And then finally, there's matte cloth. And matte cloth is messy. I don't like it. It's really cheap though. And I will sometimes use this in between two layers of regular cloth, because when you try to put the resin on this, it just, all the fibers kind of pull off. It's like the fiberglass equivalent of chipboard. So it's nasty stuff, but it serves a purpose because it's cheap and lightweight. And let's see, I wanted to show, yeah. So this piece, this is a repair part or a modification for Grievous, but this is one ply of unidirectional fiberglass with the chip fiberglass, or the matte fiberglass in between, and then another layer on top. And you get a really nice stiff part out of that, and lightweight too. Sure.
So that take a 3D printed part that's in PLA, kind of flimsy, you wrap it in fiberglass and make it very durable?
Yeah, lots of Grievous is fiberglass over PLA.
Oh, okay.
If you're going to do that, I recommend though you scuff sand the PLA, wipe it down quickly with acetone. Okay, acetone and PLA usually don't go well together, but light, like a damp cloth of acetone to get all the dust off and all the dirt, and then you can get the resin to stick to the PLA.
We just don't know what page yet, what sign grid.
80's too much. Yeah, 220, 240, yeah, 180 to. Is it coming 220? 180 to 240 grid, I think, somewhere around there. Okay. Oh wow, I'm jumping ahead here. So, next thing we're going to do is talk about the resins. Okay. And the resin will form the matrix of your composite part. Anybody ever do paper mache when they were kids? Remember that? You used white glue and newspaper, right? That's composite material. Okay, very simple one. This is a little bit more complicated and obviously more smelly. But the first type of resin, the cheapest stuff, is the polyester resin. And again, it's a Bondo brand. It's about $25 for a quart with a tube of hardener at Walmart. It works pretty well, but it has its downsides. It has a very strong odor, so you need to work in a ventilated space. The hardener is a strong acid, so you always wear safety glasses when working with it. Polyester resin has a short working life. You can't use polyester resin on styrofoam. You try to put it on styrofoam, the styrofoam will just melt underneath it. The second type of resin I want to talk about is epoxy resin. And this is what is typically used to build fiberglass boats. It's expensive. It's about $200 a gallon, but it has a very low odor. This you can get at boat stores or mail order, and it mixes 1 part of the resin, 5 parts of the resin with 1 part of the hardener. And the hardener comes in 2 speeds, slow and fast cure. The slow cure has a longer working life than the polyester resin. It can be used on styrofoam, which is another big advantage. They use it for, like I said, boats, surfboards, and General Grievous's legs were done with this. And then the last kind of resin that you might have some use for is this 2-part hobby epoxy. And this is this kind of stuff that you get at Hobby Town or Hobby Lobby. It's about $14 for 9 ounces, so it's also expensive. You mix equal parts, and it comes in different varieties, 5-minute, I think you can even get 2-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute. It's stronger than the others, but it's expensive, so use it sparingly. All right, remember how I said the cheap resin will melt styrofoam? Well, we're not going to use styrofoam. We're going to use EVA foam, ethylene vinyl acetate. That's a good trivia question. What's EVA stand for? Okay. So the pink stuff up down there, that's a thinner piece that I got at a craft store. You can also get, comes flat, comes in rolls, or you can go heavier with the floor mats from Home Depot, Harbor Freight, those kind of places. You'll find lots of cosplayers using EVA foam floor mats to make their costumes. Not many of them fiberglass over the top, though, to make them hard. A lot of people, I know they use the spray, what is that, Easy Plastic or Plastidip. They'll spray Plastidip on the tops of the parts. That is nothing wrong with doing that. Use fiberglass, though, and your part will last a lot longer. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is some fillers. Fillers can be used to make things, to smooth it out. Can also be used to, as I'll show you, fill in the edges. There's 2 kinds of fillers that I'd use. One is microballoon and the other one is Cabasil. Microballoon is microscopic fiberglass spheres, and Cabasil is fumed silica. It's microscopic fibers of fiberglass. And both of these can be added to any of the resins, and it'll turn the resin from what you saw here, from like a syrup into a paste, into almost near solid. And then you can use that to trowel into edges or on surfaces, and then let it cure, and then it can be sanded. The microballoon is easier to sand, but it's not as durable. The Cabasil is harder to sand, but it gives a little bit more strength because you're actually putting microfibers into the resin. Both of these you can get at boat stores or order off of Amazon. A quart is about 15 cents, $15 for a quart, and a quart lasts a long time, and it's almost weightless. It's really weird. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is, we talked about fillers. Okay, now we need some release agents. And for that, again, keeping things cheap and simple, cellophane tape, packing tape, okay? The polyester resin won't bond to it. It gets sticky, but it won't actually, there's no hard chemical bond that is made there. So, God willing, if this is curing, yeah, you can see this is starting to get cured. It's no longer a liquid, it's now kind of jelly-like. And it's kind of warm. And I just got some on my finger now. Okay. When we're done with the presentation, I should be able to just peel that off. Let's see, we're going to use packing tape. Also, wax paper is good. Problem with wax paper is when you separate the part from the tool, oftentimes you have wax stuck to the part that you have to sand off and then clean with acetone or something like that. Let's see. Cellophane. Cellophane can even be used to protect styrofoam. This was a styrofoam mold that I made. Okay. It's just, you can see it's paint, oh, it's Corning insulation, okay? Just styrofoam. I've got pictures of how I made this later on. But that covered up with cellophane, kind of like shinglet, produced this part. Okay, and this is off of General Grievous. This is the hump that goes over the top of his backpack. The cape goes over the top, the hydrant. Okay, and this is 2 plies of fiberglass, and it's reinforced with some plywood here, but this part came up with that. Okay.
They say 2 parts, you know, like there's 2 cloths you did?
Yeah, that's two plies of fiberglass cloth, and you have to put those down at the same time. Okay, you don't wait in between because you want the 2 layers of glass to be bonded to each other. Okay, I'll get to it a little bit later when you're using this resin. Once the resin cures, fresh resin doesn't want to stick to the cured resin. So.
Instead of like cloth resin, you do on cloth.
Well, you would do cloth resin until it's saturated, and then another piece of cloth while it's still wet, is what I'm saying. You don't want to put down one piece of cloth, let it cure, and then try to put down another piece of cloth. You want the resin to still be tacky at the very least, so that the new resin sticks to the old resin. Or I should say, you want to be working with the same pot of resin to put down both layers. So you got to learn how to work quick. I used a brush for this small part, but for a bigger part, you might use a silicone spatula and just pour the resin in the middle and work it on down. Yeah.
You ever use a spatula, the silicone spatula?
Yep. Nope. You let the resin harden and cure, and then you just peel it off and use it again. All right. And then the fanciest release agent that I'm going to talk about in here is carnauba wax. Okay, carnauba wax is good if you've got a hard tooling. Like, this is a tool that I made for making Mando cod plates. Okay, and it's layers of wood, and then it's sanded to shape, and then resin on top of this. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but resin on top of this. Let that cure, sand it smooth, apply the carnauba wax to it, and then lay up on top of the carnauba wax. And the carnauba wax will help keep the part from bonding to the tool, and you'll be able to pop the part off of the tool. So I'm starting out very basic, going more complicated. And then let's see, what else do we need? Okay, so then for finishing stuff, you're going to need spot putty. It's about $7 a tube at anywhere that, spot putty. And then, because you'll get little air bubbles and little imperfections, and you'll need the spot putty to take that out. And then finally, sandpaper. Lots and lots and lots of sandpaper. Sandpaper is your friend. You'll go through a lot of it. Find some place to get it cheap. If you're working on any kind of costume armor, you're going to be needing a rotary tool. Dremel is the most common brand, but any brand is helpful. Depending on the features and the attachments, they run from about $30 to $100 anywhere hardware is sold. I find that an oscillating tool is also very useful for cutting through fiberglass. As a matter of fact, I think the oscillating tool was invented in the medical field because they were cutting casts, fiberglass casts. So you can get a very basic one for about $35 from Harbor Freight, and a detail sander to go with all that sandpaper that you're going to use. I think this one that I found on Amazon was $30. I've worn out so many detail sanders over the years. Okay, so that's kind of like the materials and the tools that you're going to need. Now we're going to talk about the layup tooling. You need something to lay the fiberglass up on. And we're going to start with simple, and we're going to go to more complicated shapes. So the simplest tooling is a flat surface. And you can actually use a clear plastic sheet poster frame. You can get a 2-foot by 3-foot sheet at Hobby Lobby for about $10. You put the plastic on a flat surface like a table, sand it with 220 grit sandpaper until the plastic is cloudy, and then wax it with your carnauba wax. Sanding the plastic gives the wax something to stick to, and the wax keeps the resin from bonding to the plastic. Don't buff the wax. You don't want it shiny. You want to leave it cloudy. Another simple way to do flat parts is on wax paper. But again, as I said, you have that issue of you got to clean the wax off after you're done after you've pulled the part off the tool. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Okay. Even better than the plastic is glass. Okay, an old mirror, window, or a glass door works really great. I saved an old glass door from a shower renovation. It sits in my garage. Why? And I use it for laying up flat parts. The resin and the fiberglass won't stick to the glass. So when you're done, you just kind of peel it off. In this picture, I'm getting ready to fiberglass General Grievous's lower legs. And you can see my door there in the background. And this is an example of what comes off of that then. That's 2 plies of fiberglass with resin. And, anytime you need a flat part, you could use a piece of plastic if you wanted, but that's a lot tougher. It's more flexible. If anybody, if you do model rockets, that's a great way to make rocket fins. Yes?
Does he just use the poster frame for that piece for laying things?
Well, no, that piece came off of a piece of glass.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to use a poster frame, or in my case here in the example, I've got a glass door that I used. And that's the result. That's the part that you get off of there. How am I doing on time? My watch died.
Got about 17 minutes.
Okay. All right, moving up. We're going to get a little bit more complicated now. If you want to do something that's curved, okay, a garbage can, large PVC pipe, even a cooler can be used. In this photo, there we go. In this photo, I'm laying up a Mando belly plate using a blue Igloo cooler underneath as a layup tool. It just sort of matched. It was the right contour that I needed. Just cover the shape with wax paper or cellophane packing tape. The resin won't bond to the packing tape or the wax paper. The wax and the paper will stay on the surface of the part though when you pull it off, so takes a little bit more to clean that. Okay, now we're going to get really complicated. And this tool, this is what I used to make my Darth Vader armor. And it's very similar to the Mandalorian codpiece tool. It's just a lot bigger and a lot heavier, so I did not bring it. This chest mold is made from pine boards, glued together and sanded, and then they're coated with a thick layer of resin, sanded down, smooth, and then waxed. Raw resin won't bond to cured resin. It will stick, but the wax acts as a release agent. The finished part will not bond to the tool. You slip a putty knife under it, under the edge, and it will break the seal and it will pop off. With complex contours, the tooling, you need to consider the drapeability of the fiberglass cloth. And that's what I was kind of talking about with the unidirectional versus the bidirectional. Some cloth will go over and will form in two directions at once, others won't. So when you get around the shoulder area, I couldn't use the bidirectional cloth because I couldn't get it to lay flat. So I had to use the more expensive unidirectional cloth, and that worked just fine. There is a way, if you do get, you always lay up your cloth first to make sure that it's going to lay flat, okay, before you saturate it. And if you have problems, you can do what's called darting, where you cut where it's popping up, and then you just lay those two layers over the top of each other and just let it cure, and then it'll be maybe a little bump that you sand out later. Okay. And then if you need to do a small number, I'm going to go through how I made the pink foam tool. If you need to do a limited number of parts, this method works pretty well, and it's really cheap. You start with a styrofoam sheet from Home Depot. It's about $30 for a 4x8 sheet. You cut the pieces into shape and glue them together with adhesive made for foam. Don't try to use white glue to glue foam pieces together because air doesn't get in there and it doesn't ever dry out. There's special adhesive made for bonding foam to foam. And you can't use like an E6000 or something like that because that'll just melt the foam. After the foam is glued together, you sand the stair steps out until they're smooth. So in this photo, on the right-hand side, I've sanded off the stair steps. So the right side of the tool looks like the left side of the tool before I sanded. Okay, once you get the whole thing smooth, you can apply the cellophane tape, and you do it like you would shingle a house. You start at the bottom, and you put your pieces on, and if your piece won't wrap and lay down flat, start another piece. The cellophane needs to overlap. Each layer of cellophane needs to overlap. You're keeping the resin away from the styrofoam. Oops, sorry. Jumping ahead. Oh, goody. Okay, now we've talked about the materials and the tooling. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Now we're going to go and we're going to talk about the actual application, all right? Put on your safety glasses and your gloves and your breath mask. Do as I say, not as I do. Read the directions on your resin. The polyester resin, I put 2 ounces in there, and you get 12 drops per ounce, so 24 drops of catalyst to each ounce of resin. The catalyst starts a reaction in the resin that makes it cure. As it cures, it transitions from a liquid with the viscosity similar to syrup to a jelly, and then finally, did we harden yet? Yeah, now we've got a hockey puck. I don't know if you can see that, okay? So it's solid, it's still a little tacky though. As it cures, okay, the curing resin is exothermic. And exothermic means it gives off heat. I want to bring this up because if you get too much catalyst in your mix, it can get hot enough to burn you. So avoid getting it on your skin. If you get it on your skin, you can wipe it off with a rag that's damp with acetone. The other thing to consider is how much surface area you're going to try to do in one try. Because the more resin you mix up, the hotter it gets and the faster it wants to cure. It's not a stable reaction. So I guess I'm recommending practice on something small until you get comfortable with that and then work your way out. It's a good point to say though, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can fix any mistake with sandpaper. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the temperatures, okay? So 12 drops of resin or 12 drops of catalyst per 1 ounce of resin is great for 70 degrees. 10 minutes? Okay. We're getting there. If it's 90 degrees out with 12 drops, you may only get about 9 minutes of work life. So you can reduce the number of drops of catalyst to increase your working life. But if it's 40 degrees, 12 drops of catalyst will give you maybe 15 to 20 minutes or longer of working life. But it won't fully cure for hours. You can speed this up by heating the partially cured part with a heat gun or a hairdryer. You don't want to burn it, so just keep the gun moving. Don't let it dwell in any one spot for too long, and don't vary the amount of catalyst by more than about 25%. If you wind up with a part that is still sticky after 8 hours, leave it out in the sun for a day. UV light will help finish the cure. All right. Where are we? Okay, I was mixing the resin. Okay, so once the resin and catalyst is mixed, it's time to work fast. Apply some raw resin to the waxed tool with a silicone basting brush. After the resin cures, you can pull it right off of the bristles. Okay, nothing bonds to silicone. Sometimes I use silicone mixing bowls for mixing resin. When it's cured, it just peels out. This was actually off of laundry detergent. And as you can see after the fact, you let it cure and this will pop right out and I can clean it out and use it again. Lay your glass down on the damp tool and then add some more resin until the glass is saturated. You'll know it's saturated when you can see through it. Work from the center out to the edges to keep the glass as smooth as possible. Silicone spatulas work well for spreading resin. 2 plies of 6-ounce glass will produce a pretty rigid part. 3 plies will be stiffer but heavier and more expensive. In the picture that you're seeing here, I'm doing the first single layer ply of my Mandalorian codpiece. Okay, now if you want to add some thickness to your part, okay, this is in process on my Darth Vader armor. You had different, with that armor, you had different layers. So using the craft foam, bonding the craft foam to what you've already done, and then you can go over the top of that with another layer of fiberglass. So same thing that I did here. This is only one layer of craft foam, but if I wanted to add some ridges, I could put, you know, ridges or an outline on there or anything I wanted to do. Now, anytime I bond craft foam to the fiberglass that's already cured, I use that 2-part hobby epoxy. That works great. If you've got a small piece, you can use 5-minute. I think I did that for this. When you're doing something big like this, you'd use like a 30-minute cure stuff, and you just have to be patient. All right, let's see. When that layer is cured, apply some resin to the top of the foam and put down 2 more sheets of fiberglass, just like I did in the demo, okay? No need to use the epoxy here because your resin is wet and the glass will go down on top of that and bond to the foam. You can't separate this stuff now. If you try to separate it, you'll destroy the foam. When that's all cured, you remove it from the fiberglass. Sorry, you remove it from the fiberglass. Sorry. When it's all cured, you remove it from the tool, and you're ready to finish the edges. So that is that actual part there. Okay? Now, this is, as far as I know, my secret invention. The problem with this method is after you trim the edges, well, you've got a hard surface and you've got a foam edge and then another hard surface. That's not going to look good. It's not going to look right. I don't know if it's going to hold paint. So what you do is you take a Dremel with a wire brush attachment and you wire brush the edge in just a little bit and you'll obliterate the foam. This is really messy, causes a lot of dust, but I'm sure that as far as I know, the craft foam isn't toxic. So as long as you keep it moving and you don't dwell on an area for too long, the fiberglass will hold up to the punishment. Now to fill the edge, we're going to mix about 1 ounce of resin with the appropriate amount of catalyst, and then you're going to add because we're going from a liquid, now we're going to add a powder. So it's, now I'm going to talk volume. So if you've got 1 part resin, you're going to add 2 parts of the microballoon or the Cabicil, okay? And you'll get a consistency about like toothpaste, okay? It should stand up by itself, but you still want it to be like it moves around. And you're going to fill the edge with that mixture and go a little bit high with it and then let it cure. And then after you're done, after it cures, come back and you can sand it and you can get a nice square edge. So this is a sample part, okay? Follow the numbers, okay? Number 1, we've got fiberglass, foam, and fiberglass, okay? Number 2 is what it looks like when it's trimmed, okay? That's not pretty. We don't want that. Number 3 is the undercut with the wire brush, okay? I've obliterated the foam. Number 4, I've added in the resin and the microballoon into that cavity, let that cure, and then finally number 5, I come back and sand it, and you got a nice hard square edge. Almost done. Okay, and I just said what I said there. Okay, guess what? We are done. So that's the finished picture of some of the pieces that you saw in the presentation, and of course some of those pieces are wandering around. So my summary, we talked about safety And we went through, it's kind of a long list of materials, but, you know, once you get the stuff there, you've got it for the next project and the next project and the next project. You do go through some consumables with the fiberglass and the resin, but, you know. We talked about the layup shapes. You know, you're going to go, you start simple with something flat, maybe go to something with one contour, and then finally multiple contours. We talked about the layup steps, and then finishing the parts. I want to say, don't be afraid to try something new. When I walked in, this guy over here was saying, I've been afraid to try fiberglass. It's a little scary. It is messy. Any mistakes that you make, though, like I said, can be fixed with sandpaper. And be creative, have fun. I mean, I showed you some examples. Like I said, I went off the deep end once I figured out one thing, went to the next thing, went to the next thing, went to the next thing. It keeps getting more complicated. But it's been a blast. So that's my email. If you think of any questions after the fact and you want to email me, I don't mind. Please don't sell my email to anything. And then I will put this presentation up. Probably it'll take me a couple of days on that blog spot. See? Okay, go back there. All right.